services would be bags, seats, meals, and yeah, those are the core, no? Bags, seats, and meals. And then we have other services like the change. Well, not the change. So the insurance for partners. There's a hold option fee if you hold your booking. The flexible fee, flex fee, if you want the option to be able to store your travel in a travel fund. So those are the different ancillary offerings that we have. In terms of, what's the second question?
What will be the new ancillary service offerings that people will expect from Cebu?
We are reviewing other ancillary services. Nothing to announce today, no, on the ancillary services. But in terms of, kasi we're conscious kasi with ancillary, no, because it makes part of the total out-of-pocket yield, no, for passengers. So conscious that we are if we increase it, that the total out-of-pocket is still affordable, no, for the traveling public. So excess baggage, by the way, is also an ancillary product.
Okay, cool. The last would be what is the expected or the target revenue derived from this services for maybe this year or until next week?
Yeah, but when you can share. No, sorry, we can't share projected revenues, no, as a publicly listed company. So sorry.
Salamat po.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. If I may ask, I just wondering, the second quarter was a harder period for consumers relative to the first quarter, and I think that this month is a harder time for consumers than months in the second quarter because commodities costs are going up, inflation is up, and in the first quarter you flew more than 2 million passengers. I'm wondering what has been the impact of this rising inflation and rising costs in the second quarter. Did the number of passengers match exceeded the first quarter?
The second quarter numbers will disclose, no, in a bit. But suffice it to say, I think what we have seen is a couple of things. Now, one is, as Candice mentioned, we have already gone back to more than 100% of our pre-COVID domestic capacity in the second quarter. So what we have seen actually is an increase in total number of passengers flying through our network. And again, I think what we've seen in other countries is similar to what's happening here in the Philippines. A lot more people are traveling via air because you could quote it as, or people call it as revenge travel, right? But a lot more people are going out, a lot more people are flying. I mean, for us, just as an example, for us now on Boracay, pre-COVID, we were at around 7 times a day from Manila. Today, we're at around 16 times a day. And the flights are chock-a-block full on Boracay. And it's not just Boracay. We've seen it across a lot of our leisure destinations, whether it's Puerto Princesa, Coron, no, even trunk markets like Cebu, Davao, etc. No? So they're all pretty full. So second quarter, in terms of travel demand, we've seen a growth, quite a substantial growth in terms of total passenger traffic.
Follow up to that, year on year there will be growth. I'm curious about the quarter on quarter. So you flew more passengers during the quarter than the previous quarter. No numbers needed.
Yeah, certainly.
Certainly.
Definitely.
So right now, it's safe to say that because in other parts of the consumer spending, consumers are cutting down on the non-essentials. So far, the impact of this higher cost is not getting reflected on travel. People are still traveling. They're not, because basically, when you travel and vacation, I don't think it's essential, right? Unless you travel for business. So right now, you don't see that impact on leisure travel. There's a slow down in the demand.
right now?
We certainly have not seen it quarter on quarter and even year on year. Obviously, year on year is a very unfair comparison, but quarter on quarter it continues to be strong in terms of overall passenger volumes.
Mhm. Do you think this trend is going to be sustainable, or
Well, I think that's the challenge whenever you're in an inflationary environment. I think people are impacted by rising prices, rising commodity prices, etc. Even the airlines impacted by the same. No? But I guess part of our role and part of our mission is to try and entice more and more people to travel, which is why we do come out with frequent seat sales. Tell them, look, if you want an affordable fare, here's something you can travel 3 or 4 months down the road. No? So I think the seat sale we have is from September to January. So for as long as we think the airline can offer some value to our customers, we think that people will continue to take it. The other thing is, maybe the other thing we've noticed, and it's more anecdotal, you see a lot more people working from home. So it's not necessarily that they have to be at a certain place or stay here in Manila, for example, to continue to go to work. We have seen, and again, anecdotally, a lot more people working from the provinces. No? Whether it's their home province or whether they go to the beach and just work from there.
if I may, on another matter, I'm curious. We've seen the peso weakening to 55, beyond 55. I'm curious how big a drag is the weaker peso on Cebu Pacific's finances. Are you comfortable at this 55? You think this is the worst level for the year, or you expect the further depreciation for the peso?
Well, first, no, just on the impact on the airline, certainly not ideal. No, a weakening peso is not ideal, especially in the current circumstances where most of our flying are predominantly domestic network, right? And that's also reflected in our inflows. So we have predominantly peso, sales at the moment. No? Whereas in pre-pandemic, we had an international network. We had a steady flow of foreign currency. No,
Yes.
That's not the case. And our expenses, meanwhile, they're still more than 50% in dollars. Because, for example, we pay for fuel in dollars. The aircraft are paid for in dollars. Most of our maintenance expenses are in dollars. No. So we have that imbalance at the moment, and a weakening peso is certainly not ideal for us. Where it goes from the rest of the year, probably better off asking some economists. So, but I think my personal views, given the policy divergence, we could see further weakness for the rest of the year.
So, sir, you mentioned the imbalance, no? So what's Cebu Pacific doing with this imbalance? Or there's nothing you can do until you're ramping up nga the international destinations?
Pretty much. We do need the international network to ramp up. And I think just as a matter of managing yung liquidity namin, we're holding on to a larger proportion of our cash in dollars at the moment, as
Sir,
opposed to pre-pandemic.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the capex for this year is 32.8 billion pesos. And I'm wondering, what if any, is there an impact from the weakening peso? Or are you adjusting anything because of the weaker peso for the capex?
It will certainly. The time we spend that's just the way accounting works. It's just the time we spend the money for the capex. If the exchange rate is higher, then we would have to book the asset at a higher exchange rate and at a higher amount, peso amount. No? But just in terms, majority of that is in the aircraft related, diba? And we do have financing also committed in dollars, so there's not much of a concern on that front.
So no adjustments basically, or like not the amount, but maybe like if you list the items covered by the capex, there's no item being dropped or being tweaked because of the weaker peso.
No, we're not anticipating any
Safety net.
changes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Welcome.
What are your advices to people in the tourism industry? May advice pa kayo like how to support or encourage more travel? Do you have any suggestions for people in the tourism industry? Mga different.
Yeah. Hi, Wilson.
Yes.
Good to see you again.
Yes.
I think first and foremost, what we've learned from the pandemic and what's worked for us, no, in the past 2 years is how the industries actually work together, no, to make sure that we all have a confident restart and confident recovery. And one of the other things that's worked is really, and advice, I guess, is it's really mindfulness when you travel, right? Kasi there's a lot of people now saying, masks, do we need masks? Do we need, because iba-iba, no? Each person has his or her own comfort level when traveling. I think if there's one thing I'd advise is, COVID, we know that COVID will not be eradicated. COVID is here to stay, no? So how do we now learn to live with it to an extent, without impacting our own health and safety, right? So get vaccinated, get boosted, get the people around you vaccinated, get boosted. When you travel, wear masks. If you're not feeling well, stay home. It's really, I don't think there's any parang rocket science to it. I think we've all had the benefit of going through it together in the past 2 years, and we all know what works and what doesn't work, what is no longer necessary, right? What we've learned, for example, when there was COVID. Again, because surface transfer, there's none, so maybe we don't need it. So I think it's really more of trialing what works, learning from it, and then in this case, why there are more cases again of COVID, then just bringing back what works. Doesn't mean we have to bring back everything that we did that time, because that time we didn't know. So inform our decisions through data and science, and let's get back to normal na, no? Because this is not just about leisure travel and, bakasyon and, the real impact of no travel is really jobs. And I'm not just talking about Cebu Pacific jobs. This is jobs in hotels, jobs in resorts, all of the connected jobs that are related to the industry, which we're glad, no, that hotels are starting to hire again. We're hiring. This is again going back to jobs, no. So yeah, I know that wasn't your question. I kind of went off tangent, but the advice is really look at data, look at science, look after your health, wear masks if you need to, get vaccinated, get boosted. Yeah.
Are there any subsidies or policies that the new government can do to help the industry tourism? Do you have any policies you'd like to request?
I think if anything, it's just to try and make the experience more frictionless. Ideally, there's, early on in the pandemic, you had to take an RT-PCR test, you had to take a tracer, you had to take a contact tracing application, and each local government had their own contact tracing application. I think just make it as simple as possible. If you have a Vax card and you have both doses and you're boosted, just show the Vax card and then go. And that's what we've seen in other countries. Just to share, I was in Singapore over the weekend. You just go through immigration, just show them your Vax card. You had to do some other processes, but once you're through immigration, it's pretty easy. It seemed like it was pre-pandemic. The only difference was everyone was wearing masks indoors, but outside of that, it seemed pretty normal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wilson. Okay, we have one last question.
Hi, good afternoon. George Cariles of CNN Philippines. Well, I'm just wondering about the prospects of of the airline industry, given that the new transportation secretary is from the same industry. So maybe you have concerns or issues that you want to be addressed or the new leadership must focus on. Thank you.
I think Cebu Pacific's track record is we work with any and every administration. Again, part of our mission is to enable more and more Filipinos to travel, make it easier, accessible, and affordable. And these are the same words that I think Secretary Bautista has mentioned. Clearly, infrastructure development, continued improvement of any airport infrastructure is going to be helpful. I think it's advantageous that Secretary Bautista has a airline background, but clearly the Department of Transportation's remit is much bigger than the aviation sector alone. But having said that, it really is to try and continue the build program of the previous administration and continue and develop the infrastructure that's needed to make it easier, affordable, and accessible.
And that closes our Q&A. Thank you, Sander, Candice, and Mark. Let's have lunch, and after lunch, you may still approach them if you still have questions. We have an area for your requested interview. Thank you, and let's have lunch. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Live tayo sa YouTube.
Good morning. Yes.
Sir, pwede po makalaman ng taong bayan kung bakit mahal pag magbibili ng ticket, ora mismo ang alis nila.
Kasi ang ano yan kailangan may balance Kumbaga, kaya lang kami nakakapag-offer ng mga 1 peso fares, kailangan may balance siya So kung last minute ka bumili, talagang mas mahal siya. Pero kung mas maaga ka bumili, mas mura siya.
So paano na itatansya, sir, kung gaanong buwan or araw or linggo ang pagmahal ng
Depende.
isang buwan na lang alis or isang araw ay halos triple ang bayad.
Depende po kasi sa demand ng flight Minsan kung yung flight hindi puno, mas mura, di ba? Kung yung flight, ang nakikita po namin dati kung Martes o Miyerkules ka biyahe, mas mura po yung biyahe. Kasi mas konti bumabiyahe during Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So that's part of the secrets. It's cheaper on, less attractive times. Kunyari, alas 5 ka na umaga alis kunyari, uwi ka ng Manila from Cebu ng alas 5 na umaga. Mas mura yun kaysa sa alas 4, di ba?
Kahit ora mismo.
Yung ora mismo, mas tataas yung presyo po kasi depende po sa pax load So kung mas maraming tao sa aeroplano, mas tataas talaga yung presyo. So ang importante po is kailangan po para makamura, bumili ng mas maaga.
Mga ilang buwan muna bago bibili.
Oh yun, katulad ng seat sale namin, September yung offer. So kung kunyari, bumili ka ngayon for September travel, di mas mura siya lalabas.
Sir, usually kasi itong mga nagmamadaling umuwi, may patay, may emergency, kaya ganun nagmamadali sila makauwi ngayong araw na ito, mga ganun.
Ang dati po kasi, siguro mga more than 2 decades ago, isa lang naman yung presyo ng pamasahe ng ticket, ng air ticket. Pero na-deregulate yan kasi kung isa lang yung pamasahe, hindi lahat po ng tao nakakapag-afford. So kunwari, dati 3,000 pesos lang babayaran mo, whether bumili ka matagal or on the day itself, 3,000 lang. Pero marami pong tao hindi nakakapag-afford ng 3,000. Yung iba nakakapag-afford ng 88 pesos, yung iba 100 pesos, yung iba 500. So, kailangan lang may balance So, minsan talaga, pag bumili ng last minute, talagang mas mamahal po yung pamasahe.
Sir, usual dito na problema sa airport. I've been almost 15 years sa airport. Lagi ako sa airport. Usually yung problema doon, sir, walang gaano kaagad nagpapaliwanag sa pasahero sa mga problema nila.
Katulad po na.
Katulad ng, bakit na kami na-delay? Bakit kami mga ganun?
Hindi naman po. I think part of the Passenger Bill of Rights na ginawa po ng ating mga regulator is to explain yung mga cause of delay. So minsan may cause of delay tapos sasabihin Minsan due to weather, minsan due to traffic. So marami pong rason kung bakit po minsan nade-delay yung flight, no? So ine-explain naman kung hindi po na-explain na maigi, humihingi po kami ng paumanhin sa publiko. Pero more often than not, sinasabi naman po ng mga gate agent kung ano yung dahilan at ano yung rason kung bakit po na de-delay ng kokote, no? Pero part of our objective, part of our goal is to make sure na we hit on-time performance of 85%, no? So sana 85 out of 100 times on time po yung departure. That's po our goal and that's what we want to do. Minsan po hindi talaga controllable. Kunyari may pumutok na bulkan o may bagyo, no? So medyo mataas-taas yung impact sa atin operation.
Sir, isa pa, pag ang isang lugar ay maraming flight ang airline ang naroon, bumababa po ba ang
Normally pag tumataas ang supply, bumababa po yung presyo. Normally.
sa competition ito, sir?
It really is competitive driven kasi the more capacity, di ba? The more competition, the lower the pricing. That's more natural.
Para ma-attract yung...
Yes. In fact, we've always encouraged competition. Parang we were born because wala yung monopoly regulations or monopoly policies, di ba? Inopen up ng administration ni President Ramos yung aviation industry, aviation sector. So that's helped us grow and we encourage competition. So more people flying means fares could go lower.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sige po. You're welcome. Hi.